Hey, it's Ted here. I'm working on a Ocean X drive, which is the DPS fancier version. It has the WIB and the oil monitoring system. This one came out of a 39 footer with a pair of 8.1s in it, and you just wanted to reseal it, go through it and clean it. So one of the reasons that I stress when you take these things apart, don't just pop the seals out and pop seals in them. Take it all apart, clean it, because you never know what you're going to find. So just through inspection, I found this. So let's take a look. All right, so here's the upper gear set, and this is out of this drive I'm working on here. And this is the bearing carrier that's going to support the pinion gear, which is going to ride onto the forward and reverse gears in the upper gear case. And then, of course, this is the lower bearing that is pressed into the housing. So we have these two bearings. I've removed those. I have to put a new seal in it. But as I was cleaning it, and I always look at the bearing races, and I'm looking at the bearings to make sure they look okay. And then I just kind of started looking at this bearing, and then all of a sudden I was like, hey, wait a minute, what's that? So as I get a little closer, I see this little line, and I said, that little line doesn't look right. And you can hear it. That's a crack. That bearing's actually cracked. So I have to destroy the bearing to take it off. I've shown this in previous videos, but this is where you always want to really look at stuff when you take it apart. You know, you want to look at all your bearings. You want to make sure that those all spin correctly. You know, look at them carefully with a bright light. Make sure they're not damaged or anything. Because it can be disastrous when you put it back together. So I'll go back to getting this bearing. I got to cut the cage off of it and get the rollers off, and then I'll see what we got. So here we go. You know, I cut the top of the cage off of it, and there it is. You can actually see right there that that is cracked all the way through. I cannot believe this drive did not grenade. I'm just amazed that that stayed together. That was probably, I don't know how much longer it would have lasted before that bearing failed. And, you know, the other side would have cracked in half with all the loading on it. And that would have been the end of the drive. It would have destroyed the whole upper gear case. All right, so I just put a new bearing on, and here's the old one again that's cracked in half. Interesting enough. Where is it here? There it is. So there's the crack mark in it, and that crack mark goes all the way through. It's broken in half almost, so you can see where it's cracked all the way through. If I'm going to change one bearing in here, and there's a bearing that goes here, that's the larger bearing, and then there's a smaller bearing here, so I've got the new small bearing here. So these bearings go together like that, and if I'm just going to change one, you know, I will also change the other. And the other thing I found strange enough was, so on one of the rollers here, there's this score mark in it that goes all the way around. And I don't know what that's all about either, whether a piece of metal or something got in there. I don't know what that's all about, but I can catch it with my fingernail. So that bearing in that race gets replaced as well. And you can see a little bit of the wear on the inside of that, and it does look like there was something in that race, just that one thin line in the middle that's running all the way around, and that's what was riding on that bearing. That bearing was fine, really, probably would have been okay, but if I'm changing one, you know, I'm just going to change them both. Bearings are cheap, gear cases aren't. So that's the reason that I stress to when you take these apart, you really have to pay attention and look and see every single piece in them. Because you got to remember, you're running the engine at full load through it. So, you know, these engines are either 385 horsepower or they're 420 horsepower. And that's all that energy's going through this little gear. So you really got to be careful when you look at these things. You don't just reseal them, folks. You got to take them all apart and clean them. So it isn't cheap to do this if you do it right. If you're getting a really cheap deal, he's probably not looking at it real well. So I'll see you in the next one.